The Old Testament lesson is taken from 2 Kings, chapter 2, verse 1 to 12. When the Lord was about to take Elijah up to heaven in a whirlwind, Elijah and Elisha were on their way from Gilgal. Elijah said to Elisha, "Stay here, the Lord has sent me to Bethel." But Elisha said, "As surely as the Lord lives and as you live, I will not leave you." So they went down to Bethel. The company of the prophets at Bethel came out to Elisha and asked, "Do you know that the Lord is going to take your master from you today?" "Yes, I know," Elisha replied, "so be quiet." Then Elijah said to him, "Stay here, Elisha, the Lord has sent me to Jericho." And he replied, "As surely as the Lord lives and as you live, I will not leave you." So they went to Jericho. The company of the prophets at Jericho went up to Elisha and asked him, "Do you know that the Lord is going to take your master from you today?" "Yes, I know," he replied, "so be quiet." Then Elijah said to him, "Stay here, the Lord has sent me to the Jordan." And he replied, "As surely as the Lord lives and as you live, I will not leave you." So the two of them walked on. 50 men from the company of the prophets went and stood at a distance, facing the place where Elijah and Elisha had stopped at the Jordan. Elijah took his cloak, rolled it up and struck the water with it. The water divided to the right and to the left, and the two of them crossed over on dry ground. When they had crossed, Elijah said to Elisha, "Tell me, what can I do for you before I am taken from you?" "Let me inherit a double portion of your spirit," Elisha replied. "You have asked a difficult thing," Elijah said. "Yet if you see me when I am taken from you, it will be yours. Otherwise it will not." As they were walking along and talking together, suddenly a chariot of fire and horses of fire appeared and separated the two of them, and Elijah went up to heaven in a whirlwind. Elisha saw this and cried out, my father, the chariots and horsemen of Israel!" And Elisha saw him no more. Then he took hold of his garment and tore it in two. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 9, reading from verse 2. After 6 days, Jesus took Peter, James, and John with him and led them up a high mountain, where they were all alone. There he was transfigured before them. His clothes became dazzling white, whiter than anyone in the world could bleach them. And there appeared before them Elijah and Moses, who were talking with Jesus. Peter said to Jesus, "Rabbi, it is good for us to be here. Let us put up 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." He did not know what to say. They were so frightened. Then a cloud appeared and covered them, and a voice came from the cloud, "This is my son, whom I love. Listen to him." Suddenly, when they looked around, they no longer saw anyone with them except Jesus. As they were coming down the mountain, Jesus gave them orders not to tell anyone what they had seen until the Son of Man had risen from the dead. This is the gospel of Christ. Praise to Christ, our Lord.
I've seen what you can do, oh God of wonders. Your power has no end. The things you've done before, in greater measure, you will do again. 'Cause there's no prison wall you can break through, no mountain you can move, all things are possible. There's no broken body you can't raise, no soul that you can't save, all things are possible. The darkest night, you can light it up, you can light it up, oh God of revival, let hope arise, death is overcome, you've already won, God of revival. You rose in victory, and now you're seated forever on the throne. So why should my heart fear what you've defeated? I will trust in you alone, 'cause there's no prison wall you can't break through, no mountain you can move, all things are possible. There's no broken body you can't raise, no soul that you can't save, all things are possible. The darkest night, you can light it up, you can light it up, oh God of revival, let hope arise, death is overcome, you've already won, oh God of revival, God of revival. Come on, let's turn this into a prayer for us, for our families, for this community, and sing. Come awaken your people, come awaken this city, oh God of revival, pour it out, pour it out. Every stronghold will crumble, I hear the chains hit the ground. Oh God of revival, pour it out, pour it out. Come awaken the people, come awaken the city. Oh God of revival, pour it out, pour it out. Every stronghold will crumble. I hear the chains hit the ground. God of revival, pour it out, pour it out. All in dark of night, you can light it up, you can light it up. Oh God of revival, let hope arise. Death is overcome, you've already won. Oh God of revival, come awaken your people, come awaken the city. God of revival, pour it out, pour it out. Every stronghold will crumble. I hear the chains hit the ground. God of revival, pour it out, pour it out. Come awaken the sea. Yeah. Whenever though they turned to face God as Moses did, God removes the veil and there they are, face to face. They suddenly recognize that God is a living personal presence, not a piece of chiseled stone. And when God is personally present, a living spirit, that old constricting legislation is recognized as obsolete. We free them, all of us. Nothing between us and God. Our face is shining with the brightness of his face. And so we are transfigured much like the Messiah. Our lives gradually becoming brighter and more beautiful as God enters our lives and we become like him. So where you are, let's just invite the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of God, without limits. He's right there where you are. Holy Spirit, come. We invite you into our homes. We invite you into our lives. Come and revive us. Come and renew us. There's no prison wall you can break through, no mountain you can move, all things are possible. There's no broken body you can raise, no soul that you can save, all things are possible. Things are possible.
How great the chasm that lay between us, how high the mountain I could not climb. In desperation I turned to heaven and spoke your name into the night. Then through the darkness your loving kindness tore through the shadows of my soul. The work is finished, the end is written. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Who could imagine so great a mercy? What heart could fathom such boundless grace? The God of ages stepped down from glory to wear my sin and bear my shame. The cross has spoken, I am forgiven. The King of Kings calls me his own. Beautiful Savior, I'm yours forever. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Hallelujah, praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah, death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope. Then came the morning that sealed the promise. Your buried body began to breathe. Out of the silence, the roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on me. Then came the morning that sealed the promise. Your buried body began to breathe. Out of the silence, the roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on me. Jesus, yours is the victory. Hallelujah, praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah, death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope. Hallelujah, praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah, death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Jesus Christ, my living hope.
Let us pray. Lord, let the flames of your Spirit rest upon my mind, fill my heart, and touch my lips, that my words may be your word, a seed bearing fruit both within me and in those who listen and hear your word. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. The Transfiguration, healing. A bit of a background about the Transfiguration. Think about a high mountain. Traditionally, it's been said that this was Mount Tabor. But Tabor at 1,843 feet is not a high mountain as such, as Scripture says. Mount Hermon, which is over 9,000 feet, is a more probable place. Mark has been recording events in Caesarea Philippi, and Mount Hermon is near this area. Jesus takes his disciples up this high mountain. There on this high mountain, Elisha and Moses appear with Jesus. Interestingly, it is in high places where Elisha and Moses did many amazing things, and their appearance in the story could not come as a shock. Mark tells us it was 6 days later, 6 days after his prediction that some standing there would be see the kingdom of God coming with power before they died. This event happened on the 7th day after the prediction, reflecting fulfillment of Jesus' words and that God has a special revelation that he was making at that moment. Here on this mountain, God is revealing something especially important. There are several questions we should examine before we get to what God is revealing. But before we get to those questions, let's consider this. He who knows not and knows not that he knows not is a fool. Shun him. He who knows not and knows that he knows not is ignorant. Teach him. He who knows and knows not that he knows is asleep. Wake him. He who knows and knows that he knows is a wise man. Follow him. I share that to say, what was Peter thinking? Look at what he says. In many respects, Peter represents the first three of these. There was no way for Peter to fully understand what was going on. It's revealed in the statement, let's build 3 booths for each of you. He did not have a clear understanding of what he had just witnessed. Here was Moses. Here was Elisha, 2 of the great prophets of Israel's past. Both had disappeared rather than dying in an ordinary way. Legends were told about both of them. They were apparently spared proper death. And now here they are in in a normal world situation with Jesus shining with a brilliant light. What could it mean? Peter, frankly, whatever he had in his mind, he did not get it right. Mark tells us he was stuttering and not making sense because he'd got such a fright. Can you imagine what you'd be going through if that happened to you? What could that possibly mean? Jesus was finishing the work of Elisha and Moses. His work was to completely fulfill what they had begun. Right through the Old Testament, Elijah, Moses, every single book in the Old Testament has somebody who was a precursor to Jesus, who could do a lot of what he was doing, but couldn't finish what Jesus had to finish. Jesus wasn't only going to continue, but to bring it to its completion of the work of Moses and Elisha. The problem is that these disciples did not believe that even before they had this experience. They didn't really think Jesus was who he said he was. And that is precisely the point. Down there in Caesarea Philippi, Jesus had just spoken to them about something they couldn't ever imagine. Jesus' own death. Sometimes at the foot of the mountain that God wants us to climb, all we see are the clouds. Did you ever think about that? when there appears there's something impossible or unthinkable or something horrible in our lives, that impossible or unthinkable or horrible is all we can see, and that is usually the clouds. But there's an interesting point to be made here today. Throughout the Old Testament and in this passage today, God is in the clouds, and He who longs to see us at the top of the mountain. He wants to meet us there, to give us a brighter, more fuller understanding of what He's doing or what He's up to. Peter could not imagine, could not fathom what God was talking about. Jesus would suffer, He would be rejected, He would be killed by the religious aristocracy. It was really an unthinkable thought. And what was Jesus talking about? Being raised again in 3 days. What was that about? All Jews believed in a general resurrection. Yes, one day there would be a resurrection in Jewish thinking. But the notion that there would be a singular, specific resurrection for this teacher, Jesus, a bit far-fetched if you ask Peter. And those things became the clouds for Peter. He could not see the top of Mount Tabor. How could he ever understand or view the top of Mount Hermon? Comparatively, this is the difference between what Peter could comprehend and what Christ was telling him was going to happen. He couldn't see clearly, and so God chose to reveal it in a new way. 6 days passed. 6 days in which those disciples thought about, digested, discussed, and even forgot what Jesus had said to them. We really don't know what went on in their heads for that time, but time ticked by. And now Jesus says, "Come up to the mountain and see." He takes Peter, James, and John. And as they get to the top of the mountain, Jesus is transfigured before them. Transfigured, changed. He glowed, He shined. The glory of God was fully present in that instant. A lot of people believe He took the form that He would have once He ascended later into heaven, and once we go to heaven, very similar to our resurrected bodies, that when the time comes that we are resurrected, a resurrected people, we will have those same similar forms. The word used in this place for transformed is metamorpho. It means to change into another form. It's only used here and in 3 other places in the New Testament. Matthew uses the same term when he recounts the story, but Paul used it twice. Describing the Christian's progress into the image of Christ, he uses it to explain how our moral likeness should begin to look like Jesus. Why was Jesus changed? Why was He transformed? A cloud descended on them, and in the middle of that cloud, the transfiguration takes place. Moses and Elisha appear. God was revealing something He wanted them to understand. Whenever a cloud appeared in Moses' time, 2 things were happening. First, you were being ushered into the abode or dwelling place of God. Secondly, God spoke from a cloud. That means listen. So here they are, the 6 of them. Peter, James, and John. Jesus, Moses, and Elisha. And Jesus is talking with Moses and Elisha. But what's being said? Then the voice of God indeed speaks from the cloud. And what is the message? Listen. The fullest sense of the word listen is what God intends. Be obedient to Him. Obedient listening means that what He says we will do. What He has revealed we will live by. No matter what, no matter why, obedience to what He says is of paramount importance. If we look at the book of Deuteronomy chapter 18, in verse 15, the following was said. The Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from among you, from your brothers. It is to him you shall listen. This prophecy is reflected here at the Transfiguration. It identifies Jesus as the new and final mediator of God's rule in its present and future form. Peter would look back on the Transfiguration and recognize its importance later in life. It wasn't an immediate thing that he recognized for Peter. He had to get through the crucifixion and the resurrection for all of it to sink in. Notice, 2 Peter wasn't written until long after the crucifixion, long after the resurrection, the day of Pentecost. It took a while for Peter to process all of this, which is why Jesus says, don't tell anyone of this until after the resurrection. It wasn't a secret. It was just that the events would not make sense without the resurrection. People would have thought they were mad. Just hang there with me for a moment. Notice that as soon as God stopped speaking, Moses and Elisha disappear. Their work was done, over. They are superseded now. Jesus is now God's authorized agent, ruler, and spokesman. And he is the one that is staying with the disciples. And he is the one they should pay attention to. And he is the one to watch what he does next. Moses interceded for Israel several times on their way out of Egypt. The golden calf, the complaining about food, he interceded for them. Elisha offered sacrifices up in Gilgal for the people. He interceded for them. But what would Jesus do next? How would he intercede? We need to go back to the previous conversation Jesus had in Mark 8, verse 31 to 33. You see, Jesus' intercession was not going to be simply a prayer. It was not going to be a calf or doves. He was going to intercede by offering himself. What he was going to do was far more than Moses or Elisha had ever done or could have done. He was going to offer himself. And frankly, people don't like that. Peter didn't want to hear it. He argued with Jesus over it. Was it he loved Jesus so much? Probably not. We know that by his denial and disappearance when these things finally begin to take place. No, Peter didn't love Jesus that much. Peter loved Peter that much. So he selfishly wanted what he wanted. Peter wanted what we all want. He wanted to do it himself, to take care of his own business. Peter wanted to believe that he didn't need an intermediator. He could live good enough and die good enough not to not have someone else pay his price. So Peter argues with Jesus. And you and I do as well. If you listen to Jesus, as God said in the cloud, then you've got to be obedient to Jesus, obedient to his death, obedient to his word. And here is where we stumble. Some pieces of that word we just don't want to hear. It cramps our style. It hems us in. It's hard to deal with. So, like with Peter, we argue. Scripture says that Peter rebuked Jesus. Pretty strong. It's a pretty strong word, isn't it? Jesus' words are stronger. Get behind me, Satan. Yes, Satan. How would you like Jesus to peg you with that one? You see, when we argue or discount what Jesus has already said to us, we aren't listening. We are adjusting. We are not being transformed. We are conforming where we can. We are not being obedient. In fact, we are being disobedient, and we need to own up to it. We need to admit that our will is out of line with His and recognize that we are trying to do it ourselves. Why is it so hard to listen to Jesus? To truly be obedient to Jesus? It's because He asks us to do difficult and hard things. We think. How often do you learn that you should have listened to Jesus because of what you have suffered? Go back in your life and think. Seriously, how many times has your disobedience, even as a church or mostly as individuals, but also as a body, has your disobedience brought you into suffering relationships in all areas of your life? When we disobey, when we don't listen, we usually suffer. We choose disobedience and we suffer. And it's the exact opposite with that with Jesus. Jesus chose obedience and he suffered. Think about in the garden, not what my will, but thy will be done. Take this cup from me. Philippians 2 says, he became obedient unto death, even death upon a cross. Why did Jesus choose to obey and suffer? Think about it. Because of love. He loved and loves us that much. Why do we choose not to obey and suffer? Because we love ourselves that much. Peter, James, and John needed the transfiguration. They needed it to get them through the book of Acts, beyond the resurrection. You and I look back through the resurrection often. We read about it and we speak about it and we look at it and what happened. They didn't have that. Even though Jesus had told them, they couldn't fathom it in their own minds. So the glory contained in this moment would be a foreshadowing of what was to come, of what the crucifixion and the resurrection would be. The glory of Jesus revealed. The glory of God becomes a fog or a mist without the resurrection. The climax of the story is what makes the rest of the story make sense, the resurrection. When you cannot see through the fog or the mist, listen closely. God's already revealed himself. Just listen or obey. So the big question for me this week, and because we're doing a series on healing, and it's something I thought about a lot this week, how does the transfiguration apply to healing? How does the transfiguration apply to healing? Well, Peter, James, and John didn't completely understand what happened on that mountain. This mountaintop experience did give them a clearer vision of Jesus. Jesus was more than a healer, more than a gifted storyteller, more than a wise teacher. On that mountain, Peter, James, and John were able to see Jesus' glory more fully than ever before. They knew without a doubt that he was more than just another person. They knew he was greater than even Moses and Elisha. They knew he was the Son of God. And for me, that's the key to understanding the significance of the transfiguration in terms of healing. The fact is that right after God tells Peter, James, and John who Jesus is, God then says, listen to him in Matthew 17. Do not just stay up on this mountain. Do more than be amazed by this experience. Listen to Jesus. Do what he says. And what does Jesus tell them? According to Matthew, Jesus already called them to turn from the ways of the world and turn to God's kingdom, to follow him and fish for people, to be salt and light and therefore make a difference in the world around them, to forgive instead of seeking revenge, to love their enemies, to stop judging others, and to take up their cross and follow him. And that is all healing, isn't it? The transfiguration reaffirms Jesus' identity, reveals his glory, and calls the disciples to listen to him. It validates that despite his announcement that he will suffer and die, Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God. He is the ultimate healer. We need to trust and know that God heals us through the Holy Spirit. We need to trust and know that Jesus was the ultimate healer because this was affirmed by God through the transfiguration. The light radiated through Jesus on that day up on the mountain. That light which shone through Jesus also shines through us as believers, and all believers before and after us. The light which shone through Jesus is the same light which shines through the Holy Spirit and heals. It healed in the church in Acts 2. It healed in the church in the Middle Ages. It healed in the church of the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And it heals in our church today. Everybody remembers that saying, what would Jesus do? Jesus prayed for people, and because of their faith, people were healed. Because of what happened on the Mount of Transfiguration, Peter saw Elisha and Moses. He didn't want to leave. But as Christians, there are so many things that happen inside the church building where people are healed and God is glorified. But true healing is not about what happens in the building. It's about being used by God in our everyday lives out there, in our children, in our co-workers, in our churches, in our families, in our enemies. Are we being the light of healing that Jesus was? Think about your own lives. Think about what you need to do. Think about what Jesus would do in the same situation to bring healing, and then do exactly that. What would Jesus do? WWJD. Do what Jesus would do. God is good all the time. So as we carry on and continue thinking about healing, I want to pray into a few aspects of healing which the Spirit has led me towards over the last few days. So let us pray. Lord Jesus, Father God, Holy Spirit, you have reconciled us in Christ Jesus and have given us the ministry of reconciliation. We pray for all those from whom we are estranged. Bring healing to strained or broken relationships. Forgive us for the times we have wronged others, whether by ignorance, neglect, or intention. Grant us the courage as a church and as individuals and the grace to speak their forgiveness and opportunity to make amends. Where others have wronged us, grant us a gracious spirit that we might forgive. Where we have wronged others, grant them a gracious spirit that they might forgive. Take away all hatred and prejudice and whatever else may prevent us from being the church, from being the people, from being the beacon on the hill which you want us to be. Heal us, Lord. Help us to have one body, one spirit, and one hope in this church and out there in the world. We ask forgiveness for anything that has happened here in the past which may take away from your glory. We pray for healing with any people who may have left because of past hurts. Lord, help them forgive us. Through your healing touch, Father, help us to be united in you, no matter what has gone before us, so that we may be united in you. And in one mind, one heart, one mouth, glorify you in this place, in our lives and out in the world, as a united people and as individuals. Come, Holy Spirit, move among us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.